The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers as I heard my daughter's voice cut through the evening air like a rusty blade. I was under the hood of my old Ford, trying to convince the carburetor to cooperate for another 1,000 miles, when Jess's words drifted out from our kitchen window. "If Dad ever finds out what you and Cedric did at that conference, he'll drink himself to destruction. I honestly wish Cedric was my real father." Nothing like overhearing your own daughter wish you'd been replaced by a corporate Ken doll on your 8th wedding anniversary. The timing was perfect, really. Absolutely perfect. I stayed frozen under that hood, my hands trembling against the engine block. 8 years of marriage, 18 years of raising Jess, and this was my anniversary present. The gift that keeps on giving. My name is Drew Halden, and I fix things for a living. Cars, mostly. Sometimes lawnmowers, occasionally a busted refrigerator for Mrs. Patterson next door. I'm good with my hands, always have been. What I apparently stink at is fixing marriages. Halcyon, Pennsylvania used to be something. Back when the steel mills ran 3 shifts and every man in town had calluses on his palms and pride in his chest. Now it's all peeling paint, empty storefronts, and secrets whispered behind net curtains. The kind of place where everyone knows your business before you do. I crawled out from under the Ford and wiped my hands on an old rag. Through the kitchen window, I could see Arielle pacing back and forth, her phone pressed to her ear like it was surgically attached. Always on that thing. Always talking to someone more important than her husband. "Mom, you need to be more careful," Jess continued, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a whisper. "Dad's not stupid, even if he acts like it sometimes." Acts like it, right? Arielle's voice joined the conversation, though I couldn't make out her words. Probably something about how I wouldn't understand, how I'm just a mechanic, how she deserves better. The usual script. I'd married up. Everyone said so. Arielle Winters, with her college degree and her ambitions, settling for Drew Halden and his grease-stained fingernails. She worked in corporate HR at Fallon Construction, wore suits that cost more than I made in a week, and spoke a language of synergy and optimization that might as well have been ancient Greek. Cedric Fallon, her boss. Former college football player, inherited Daddy's construction company, drove a Porsche that probably cost more than my house. Everything I wasn't, wrapped up in a $1,000 suit and a smile that could sell ice to penguins. I walked into the garage and grabbed a beer from the mini fridge I'd installed next to my workbench. The bottle was cold against my palm, and I took a long pull while staring at the collection of tools hanging on the pegboard. Each one had its purpose, its function. Unlike me, apparently. The kitchen window went quiet, and I heard the front door slam. Arielle's heels clicked across the driveway, heading for her silver BMW. Company car, of course. Everything was company this, company that. Company conferences where wives apparently forgot they were married. I should have confronted her right then, should have marched into the house and demanded answers. Instead, I finished my beer and started cleaning my tools, arranging them in perfect order on the pegboard. Sometimes when your world's falling apart, you need to control what you can. Jess appeared in the garage doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder. 18 years old, heading off to college in the fall, and looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "Mom had to go back to the office," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Some emergency project." "On our anniversary?" She shrugged. "Important client meeting tomorrow. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. The question was, how long had it been going on? "Pizza for dinner?" I asked, trying to keep my voice level. "I'm eating at Madison's house. Her mom's making lasagna." Of course she was. Couldn't have the grease monkey dad embarrass her with his frozen pizza and beer dinner. Not when Madison's mom probably served wine with dinner and talked about book clubs and charity galas. After Jess left, I stood alone in my garage, surrounded by the smell of motor oil and the ghosts of better times. This was my sanctuary, the one place where things made sense. You had a problem, you diagnosed it, you fixed it. Simple. Marriage, apparently, didn't come with a repair manual. I walked back into the house, and the silence hit me like a physical thing. The kitchen still smelled like Arielle's perfume, something expensive and floral that always reminded me of funeral flowers. Her coffee cup sat in the sink, lipstick stain on the rim, and I found myself staring at it like it might reveal some hidden truth. That's when I saw it. A crumpled receipt, barely visible under a stack of mail on the counter. I almost threw it away without looking, but something made me smooth it out. Ocean View Restaurant, the fancy place up the coast where they charge $50 for a piece of fish and call it cuisine. The date made my stomach drop. Last Tuesday. The same Tuesday Arielle had supposedly been at a work conference in Pittsburgh, but it was the signature line at the bottom that really got me, written in Arielle's careful handwriting. With love, Arielle and Cedric. With love. I sat down hard in one of our kitchen chairs, the receipt trembling in my hands. 8 years of marriage, and my wife was signing restaurant bills with another man's name. Not just any man, her boss. The golden boy with the perfect smile and the Porsche. The conference. Right. I folded the receipt carefully and slipped it into my wallet, right behind my driver's license. Evidence. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind, that the distance between Arielle and me wasn't just my imagination. Outside, rain started pattering against the windows, and I sat there in my empty kitchen, listening to the sound and trying to figure out what the heck I was supposed to do next. Confront her? Pretend I never saw it? Pack my bags and disappear into the night like some country song? None of those options felt right. None of them felt like enough. I thought about Cedric Fallon with his perfect teeth and his inherited empire. Thought about him taking my wife to fancy restaurants while I ate leftover pizza in my garage. Thought about my daughter wishing he was her father. That's when something shifted inside me. Something cold and calculating that I'd never felt before. If they wanted to play games, maybe it was time I learned the rules. I finished my beer and started planning. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The next morning, I woke up alone. Again. Arielle's side of the bed was cold, the sheets barely wrinkled. She'd come home late, slipped in without waking me, and left early for another important meeting. The pattern was so established, it might as well have been written in stone. I made coffee in our fancy machine, the one Arielle had insisted we needed because regular coffee makers were so pedestrian. Everything in our house was an upgrade from my simple tastes. Granite countertops instead of formica, stainless steel appliances instead of basic white. A statement about who we were supposed to be, not who we actually were. My phone buzzed with a text from Big Mike at the Rusty Tap. Boxing night tomorrow. You fighting or just drinking? Both, probably. Mike ran the local dive bar and organized amateur boxing matches in the back room. Nothing fancy, just working guys blowing off steam and settling scores the old-fashioned way. Arielle hated that I went there, said it was beneath me. Maybe that's why I loved it. I texted back, drinking, maybe fighting if the right opponent shows up. The garage needed my attention, but I couldn't focus on carburetors and transmission fluid, not with that receipt burning a hole in my wallet. Instead, I found myself driving through town, taking the long way to nowhere, trying to clear my head. Halcyon looked different in the morning light, sadder somehow. The old Victorian houses that once housed mill supervisors and shop foremen were divided into apartments now, their paint peeling and their porches sagging. The downtown strip had more empty storefronts than businesses, and the ones that remained looked like they were hanging on by pure stubbornness. I found myself parked outside Fallon Construction's headquarters, a gleaming glass and steel monument to success, in a town that had forgotten what success looked like. Cedric's Porsche sat in the executive parking spot, pristine and perfect under the morning sun. That's when I saw her. Arielle's BMW pulled into the lot, and she stepped out wearing a dress that hugged her curves and heels that clicked authority with every step. She looked beautiful, confident, successful. Everything I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. She also looked guilty as sin. I watched her walk toward the building, and that's when Cedric appeared at the entrance. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of tan that comes from golf courses and vacation homes. He held the door for her, and his hand brushed the small of her back as she passed. Just a touch, brief, casual, the kind of thing that could be innocent if you didn't know better. But I knew better now. I sat in my truck for another 10 minutes, watching the building like it might reveal more secrets. Other employees arrived, hurried and harried, clutching coffee cups and checking phones. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that their boss was playing house with someone else's wife. My phone rang, startling me out of my surveillance. Arielle's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," I answered, trying to sound normal. "Drew, I'm going to be late again tonight. Big presentation tomorrow, and Cedric wants the whole team to stay and rehearse." Cedric wants. Of course he does. "What time should I expect you?" "Probably not until after 10. Don't wait up." "It's our anniversary week, Arielle. I thought maybe we could—" "I know, and I'm sorry. But this project could make my career. You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. Her career was more important than our marriage. Her boss was more important than her husband. Everything was more important than us. "Sure," I said. "I understand. You're the best. Love you." She hung up before I could respond. "Love you." The words felt hollow, meaningless, like something she said out of habit rather than feeling. I drove home and tried to lose myself in work. Mrs. Patterson's ancient Buick needed a brake job, and I threw myself into the familiar rhythm of removing wheels and replacing pads. Physical work, honest work, the kind of thing that produced results you could see and touch. Around 3 o'clock, Jess came home from school, earbuds in, eyes glued to her phone. She barely acknowledged me as she grabbed a soda from the fridge and headed upstairs. 18 years old, and already an expert at making me feel invisible. I finished the brake job and cleaned up my tools, but my mind kept wandering back to that restaurant receipt. With love, Arielle and Cedric. The words played on repeat in my head like a broken record. That evening, I drove to the Rusty Tap. The bar sat on the edge of town, a squat brick building that had weathered decades of economic ups and downs. The neon sign flickered, and the parking lot was full of pickup trucks and motorcycles. My kind of place. Big Mike stood behind the bar, all 300 pounds of him squeezed into a black t-shirt that had seen better days. He'd been a heavyweight contender once, before a bad right hand and worse management ended his career. Now he served beer and wisdom in equal measure. "Drew," he called out as I walked in, "you look like someone stole your lunch money." Something like that. He poured me a beer without being asked, the foam settling perfectly at the rim. "Woman trouble? Is it that obvious?" "Brother, I've been married 3 times. I can smell woman trouble from across the county." I took a long pull of beer and looked around the bar. Working guys mostly, mechanics and construction workers, and the few factory employees left in town. Men who understood that sometimes life hits you in the gut, and all you can do is take the punch and keep standing. "You ever think about getting even?" I asked Mike. He raised an eyebrow. "Even for what?" "Hypothetically. Say someone was playing you for a fool, making you look stupid. What would you do?" Mike leaned across the bar, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Hypothetically? I'd make sure they regretted it. But I'd be smart about it. No point in getting even if you end up worse off than when you started." Smart about it. That was the key, wasn't it? not some crime of passion or stupid confrontation. Something calculated. Something that would hurt them the way they'd hurt me. I finished my beer and headed home, my mind already working on possibilities. Arielle's car wasn't in the driveway, of course. Still at the office, rehearsing with Cedric. I wondered what exactly they were rehearsing. The house felt like a mausoleum, all expensive furniture and empty spaces. I walked through the rooms, seeing them with new eyes. The wedding photos on the mantel, smiling faces from a time when I believed in forever. The vacation pictures from trips we'd taken when we still enjoyed each other's company. The gradual progression from happiness to obligation, documented in digital memories. I stopped at Arielle's home office, a converted bedroom where she worked on weekends and handled our finances. Her laptop sat closed on the desk, password protected and full of secrets. But Arielle had always been careless about certain things. I opened the desk drawer and found what I was looking for, a small notebook where she wrote down passwords and important numbers, old habits from before smartphones and cloud storage. I flipped through the pages until I found what I needed. Her laptop password was Success 2024, with a $sign replacing the S. Typical Arielle, always thinking about money and advancement. I opened the laptop and navigated to her email. What I found there made my stomach turn and my anger crystallize into something harder and more focused. Months of messages between Arielle and Cedric. Not just work emails, but personal ones, intimate ones. Plans for weekend getaways disguised as business trips. Complaints about me, about how I didn't understand her ambitions, about how she deserved better. One email, dated just last week, made me clench my fists. Drew's getting suspicious. He asked too many questions about the Pittsburgh conference. Maybe we should cool it for a while. Cedric's response. Don't worry about Drew. He's not smart enough to figure it out, and even if he did, what's he going to do? He needs you more than you need him. We'll be more careful, but I'm not giving you up. Not now, not ever. C. Not smart enough to figure it out. I printed out the most damning emails and slipped them into a folder, evidence for later. Then I closed the laptop and put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Arielle came home just after 11, her cheeks flushed and her hair slightly messed. She claimed she was exhausted from the long day, kissed my cheek with lips that tasted like wine, and went straight to bed. I sat in my garage until almost 2 a.m, drinking beer and planning. They thought I was stupid. They thought I was weak. They thought I would just take it and keep quiet, like a good little husband who knew his place. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Saturday morning brought unseasonable warmth and a plan that had been percolating in my mind since I'd read those emails. Arielle was at the office again, naturally, another emergency project that couldn't wait for Monday. Jess was at her friend Madison's house, probably complaining about her embarrassing father and his blue-collar existence, which left me free to do a little reconnaissance. I drove to Cedric's neighborhood, a collection of McMansions built during the town's brief economic revival in the early 2000s. His house sat on a hill overlooking the valley, all glass and angles and architectural statements that screamed money. The kind of place that appeared in home magazines and made normal people feel inadequate. I parked down the street and walked up his driveway like I belonged there. Confidence was key. Act like you have a right to be somewhere, and most people won't question it. The Porsche sat in the circular driveway, waxed and pristine, probably worth more than I made in 2 years. I walked around it slowly, admiring the craftsmanship, the attention to detail. Beautiful machine, really. Shame about what happened next. I pulled out my keys and dragged them along the passenger side, from headlight to taillight. The sound of metal on metal was satisfying in a way I hadn't expected. Then I did it again on the driver's side, adding some artistic flourishes. His initials intertwined with hers, just like that restaurant receipt. The mailbox sat at the end of the driveway, and I noticed something silk and blue draped over the edge. A scarf. Arielle's scarf, the one I'd given her for Christmas 2 years ago. She must have dropped it during one of her visits. I pocketed the scarf and was heading back to my truck when the front door opened. "Excuse me!" A woman's voice, sharp and authoritative. "What are you doing?" I turned to see an older Hispanic woman in a housekeeper's uniform standing on the front steps. She held a phone in her hand, and I had the sinking feeling she'd been recording everything. "Just returning something that was lost," I said, holding up the scarf. She looked at me suspiciously, then at the Porsche. Her eyes widened when she saw the fresh scratches. "I'm calling the police," she said, raising her phone. "No need for that. Just tell Mr. Fallon that Drew Halden stopped by. He'll understand." I walked back to my truck with as much dignity as I could muster, knowing she was filming every step. By the time I reached the street, she was already on the phone, probably calling Cedric to report the incident. Good. Let him sweat a little. I drove to the hardware store and bought a few supplies. Nothing suspicious, just some basic items that might come in handy later. Then I stopped by the Rusty Tap for lunch and a beer. Big Mike was working the day shift, and the bar was nearly empty except for a few regulars watching baseball on the ancient television above the bar. "You look pleased with yourself," Mike observed, sliding a beer across the bar. "Just had a productive morning." "The kind of productive that might get you in trouble." I shrugged. "Sometimes trouble finds you whether you're looking for it or not." My phone buzzed with a text from Arielle. "We need to talk. Coming home now." "Showtime," I muttered, finishing my beer. I got home just as Arielle's BMW pulled into the driveway. She stormed out of the car, her face flushed with anger, still wearing the clothes she'd supposedly slept in. "What the heck is wrong with you?" she demanded before I was even out of my truck. "Good afternoon to you too, honey. How was work?" "Don't play dumb, Drew. Cedric's housekeeper saw you vandalizing his car. She got it all on video." Vandalizing. That's a strong word. I prefer artistic expression. She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "This isn't funny. Do you have any idea how this makes me look? Cedric is my boss, Drew. My career depends on maintaining a professional relationship with him." Professional relationship. Right. "I found something that belongs to you," I said, pulling the blue scarf from my pocket. "Thought you might want it back." The color drained from her face. "Where did you find that?" "Cedric's mailbox. Funny place for it to end up, don't you think?" She snatched the scarf from my hands, her mind clearly racing for an explanation. "I must have dropped it when I was there for the team meeting last week." "Team meeting at his house? How cozy." "It wasn't like that. We were working on the Morrison project and the office was being painted. Cedric offered his home office as an alternative." The lies came so easily, so smoothly. She'd had practice. Of course he did. Always thinking of his employees, that Cedric. "Drew, what's gotten into you? This jealousy thing is really unattractive." Jealousy. She was flipping the script, making me the bad guy. Classic manipulation, and probably something she'd learned from Cedric himself. "I'm not jealous," I said calmly. "I'm just paying attention." "To what?" I pulled out the restaurant receipt and handed it to her. "To this. Ocean View Restaurant. Last Tuesday. The same Tuesday you were supposedly in Pittsburgh." She looked at the receipt, and I watched her face cycle through surprise, panic, and finally defiance. "I can explain this." "I'm sure you can. You're very creative." The Pittsburgh meeting was canceled at the last minute. Cedric and I decided to use the time for a working lunch to discuss the Morrison project. It was completely professional. Professional lunches where you sign the check with love? She looked down at the receipt again, and I saw the exact moment she realized she'd been caught. "It was a joke," she said weakly. Cedric was complaining about his wife not appreciating him, and I was venting about our marriage problems. We were being sarcastic. Marriage problems. There it was, out in the open. "What marriage problems, Arielle? Come on, Drew. We both know things haven't been good between us for a long time. We're like roommates who happen to share a bed. And whose fault is that? Nobody's fault. We just grew apart. It happens. Or maybe you grew toward someone else. The accusation hung in the air between us, heavy and dangerous. Arielle's face hardened, and I saw a glimpse of the woman she'd become, cold, calculating, willing to sacrifice anything for her ambitions. I think you should stay somewhere else tonight, she said. Give us both some space to think. This is my house, too. Fine. Then I'll stay at my sister's. But Drew, if you ever embarrass me like this again, if you ever show up at Cedric's house or make a scene at my workplace, I'll file for divorce and take everything. The house, the business, everything. Don't test me on this. She went inside and packed a bag while I stood in the driveway, processing what had just happened. She'd threatened me, not just with divorce, but with financial ruin. She knew exactly how to hurt me, where to apply pressure. But she'd also confirmed everything I suspected. The defensive anger, the weak explanations, the immediate threats. Guilty people always overreacted. After she left, I sat in my garage and opened a beer. The first round had gone to her, but the fight was far from over. She thought she held all the cards, thought she could intimidate me into submission. She was about to learn that this particular husband had more fight in him than she'd bargained for. I pulled out my phone and started making some calls. If Arielle wanted to play hardball, I was happy to oblige. But I was going to play by my rules, not hers. The game was just getting started. Sunday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was in the garage, pretending to organize my tool collection while actually plotting my next move, when a black Mercedes pulled into my driveway. The woman who stepped out was everything Arielle aspired to be. Mid-40s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about money. I recognized her from the society pages of the local newspaper, Samantha Fallon, Cedric's wife. "Mr. Halden?" she asked, approaching with careful steps in her expensive heels. "That's me, though most people just call me Drew. I'm Sam Fallon. I believe you know my husband. We've met, though I can't say we're friends." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "May we talk? Privately?" I gestured toward the garage, and she followed me inside, looking around at my organized chaos with what seemed like genuine interest. "This is where you work?" "When I'm not vandalizing sports cars." That earned me a real smile. "Yes, I heard about that. Quite artistic, according to Maria. Your housekeeper?" "Former housekeeper. I let her go yesterday. Seems she was taking liberties with her photography hobby." "Interesting. Sam Fallon was destroying evidence and firing witnesses. Either she was protecting her husband, or she had her own agenda." "What can I do for you, Mrs. Fallon?" "Please, call me Sam. And I think the question is what we can do for each other." She reached into her purse and pulled out a manila envelope. "I believe these belong to you." Inside were printouts of the same emails I'd found on Arielle's laptop, plus several more I hadn't seen. The correspondence between my wife and her husband going back almost a year, plans, promises, and intimate details that made my jaw clench. "How did you get these?" "Cedric isn't as careful with his passwords as he thinks, and unlike your wife, I actually pay attention to what's happening in my own house." I looked up from the emails. "How long have you known?" "About the affair, 6 months. About the others, much longer. Others, plural." "Your husband makes a habit of this?" "Cedric collects women the way some men collect cars, young ones usually, employees who depend on him for their livelihoods. Your wife is just the latest in a long line." The casual way she said it, like she was discussing the weather, was somehow more chilling than anger would have been. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm tired of cleaning up his messes, and because this time he's made a mistake that could cost me something I actually care about." She pulled out another document, this one official-looking with legal letterhead. "Fallon Construction is being investigated for workplace harassment. 3 former employees have filed complaints, all involving Cedric's inappropriate behavior. If this goes public, it could destroy the company. And you care about the company more than your marriage? I care about my financial security. The company is worth $12 million. Half of that is mine, regardless of what Cedric does in his spare time. But if the company collapses due to scandal, I lose everything. Now we were getting to the real agenda. What do you want from me? I want you to help me destroy their relationship before it destroys my investment. And how exactly would I do that? Sam reached into her purse again and pulled out a small digital recorder. Cedric's having a company party next weekend, annual celebration for landing the Morrison project. Your wife will be there, of course, probably planning to use it as an opportunity for another romantic rendezvous. So you're going to crash the party, make a scene, force them to choose between their affair and their careers. I stared at her, trying to process what she was suggesting. You want me to publicly humiliate my wife at her company party? I want you to publicly humiliate both of them. Cedric thinks he's untouchable, that his money and position protect him from consequences. Your wife thinks she's smarter than everyone else, that she can have her cake and eat it too. Time to prove them both wrong. What's in it for me? Besides revenge, I'll make sure you get everything in the divorce, the house, the business, even spousal support if you want it. I have resources your wife can't match, and I'm very good at playing the long game. It was tempting. More than tempting. The chance to expose them both, to make them pay for their betrayal in the most public way possible. I need to think about it. Of course, but don't take too long. The party is Saturday night, and timing is everything in situations like this. She left her contact information and drove away, leaving me alone with the emails and a decision that could change everything. That afternoon, Jess came home from Madison's house, her usual sullen self amplified by whatever teenage drama was currently consuming her life. "Where's Mom?" she asked, raiding the refrigerator. "Staying at Aunt Linda's for a few days. We had a disagreement." "About what?" "Adult stuff." She rolled her eyes. "Whatever. Madison's parents never fight. They actually like each other." The comment stung because it was true. Arielle and I had stopped liking each other somewhere along the way. The question was whether that justified what she was doing with Cedric. "Jess, can I ask you something?" "I guess." "That thing you said the other night about wishing Cedric was your father, did you mean it?" She looked uncomfortable, like she'd been caught in something she didn't want to explain. "I don't know. Maybe. He's just so much more successful than you know? Like, he drives a Porsche and lives in that amazing house and everyone respects him. And you don't respect me? It's not that. It's just, you fix cars, Dad. That's not exactly impressive. 18 years of raising her, of working extra hours to pay for her clothes and her phone and her college fund, and she thought I wasn't impressive because I worked with my hands. Success isn't just about money, Jess. Easy for you to say. You've never had any. She went upstairs, leaving me alone with that particular knife in my back. My own daughter thought I was a failure. My wife thought I was too stupid to notice her affair. Everyone in my life had apparently decided I was worth less than they were. Maybe it was time to prove them wrong. I called Sam Fallon that evening. "I'm in," I told her, "but we do this my way." "What did you have in mind?" "Something they'll never forget." The party was 5 days away. 5 days to plan something that would expose them both and give me the satisfaction of watching their perfect little world collapse. I'd spent my whole adult life being the nice guy, the reliable husband, the steady provider. Where had it gotten me? A cheating wife, a disrespectful daughter, and a reputation as the town fool who couldn't keep his woman happy. Time to try being the villain for a change. Saturday night was unseasonably warm when I parked across from the Riverside Country Club, watching the wealthy file in for Fallon Construction's annual party. Arielle's BMW was already there. She'd been playing the role of Cedric's perfect right hand for hours. Sam texted, "Everything ready, Last chance to back out. Too late, I replied. The plan was simple. Get inside, get to the microphone, play the recordings. Let the truth burn everything down. Inside, Marble and Crystal made it clear people like me didn't belong. The hostess barely hid her disgust as she checked my invitation. The ballroom was full. Cocktail dresses, expensive suits, 200 people celebrating Cedric's empire. Arielle stood beside him, radiant, laughing like she hadn't betrayed every inch of the life we built. Sam appeared beside me. Remember why you're doing this. Because they think I can't fight back. The jazz trio paused. The microphone was free. Time. Then Arielle saw me. Shock, fear, anger. Cedric followed, ready to have me tossed out, but I was already on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, I'm here to talk about loyalty. Specifically, my wife Arielle's loyalty to her boss, Cedric Fallon. The room went silent. I played the first recording, Arielle's email. Drew's not smart enough to figure it out. He needs me more than I need him. Gasps swept the ballroom. I played Cedric's. He's just a mechanic. Better men take care of women like her. People shifted, whispering, staring at Cedric with disgust. His employees, his clients, listening to exactly what he thought of them. Cedric shouted for security. No one moved. I didn't stop. Better men? That's bold coming from someone coasting on inherited money. Then Sam delivered the final blow. When Cedric claimed I had no right to be there, she lifted her martini and said, Actually, I invited him. I'm filing for divorce Monday. Thanks to Drew, I'm taking half. Cedric froze. The crowd exploded, phones out, recording everything. Arielle rushed forward. Drew, please, not like this. Let's talk privately. Like you talked privately with him? I said. I was good enough to build your life, but not good enough to stay in it. I looked at the crowd. Believe people when they show you who they are. And that was it. I walked off stage and out of the ballroom. Arielle called after me, but I didn't turn back. Outside, my old truck sat in a sea of luxury cars. It looked out of place, just like I always had in Arielle's new world. But it felt honest. Mine. My phone buzzed non-stop. Calls, texts, fallout already spreading. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and the end of an 8-year marriage. But tonight, I felt steady for the first time in months, the last real man in a room full of pretenders. Driving home through quiet Halcyon, I knew one thing for certain. I finally told the truth. And sometimes, that alone is enough to burn a kingdom down.